Chapter 6. The People of the Field. Who are you? Where are you from, and what brings you here? Asked Olmec. I'm Conan, and this is Valeria, answered the barbarian. We come from the north, and we're traveling to the coast. You'll never reach it, said the woman next to Olmec. Nobody leaves Shukotl. Are we prisoners? Asked Conan, his hand on his sword. No, answered Prince Olmec hurriedly. You're our friends, but maybe different things will keep you here. He looked at the woman beside him and said, This is Princess Tassela. But come, you must be hungry after your journey. Let's eat. They went to one side of the room and sat at a table that was covered with strange fruit. During the meal, Conan often looked at Tassela, but the princess was busily staring at Valeria. So how did you come through the forest? Asked Olmec. Well, a dragon gave us some problem there, answered Conan. But once we killed it, we were fine. You killed a dragon god? Tecuhtli cried. Why not? It wanted to eat us. But no man can kill a dragon, said Olmec. They can if they put a poisoned spear in his mouth, laughed Conan between mouthfuls of food. Olmec looked at him in surprise and then explained. Our ancestors came to this city 50 years ago to escape the forest dragons. The city of Huchotl was sold when they arrived. The sickly people lived here when were the descendants of the city builders, but even they did not know how old Huchotl is. When our people first arrived, the city people closed the gates and shot arrows at them. Our ancestors could not return to the dragon's forest, so they stayed in the desert. One night, a city slave secretly visited them. He would come to the city years before, with soldiers from our country, through the forest. The dragons had killed his friends, but he managed to reach the city, where he became a slave. His name was Tolkemec. Prince Olmec's eyes shone as he says this. As many in the room whispered angry words when they heard the name Tolkemec. The prince went on. Tolkemec promised to open the city gates to our ancestors. He asked only for all prisoners to be his. Our ancestors agreed. The next morning, he opened the gates. Our people entered Shukotl, and most of the people died in the fighting. Tolkemec's new slaves had built the city. They brought gold, jewels, and stones from far away, and worked day and night on the building. The first rulers of Shukotl were wizards, and they found old reptile bones in the ground. They gave this life and made dragons, which they kept in the forest around the desert. Tolkemec also explained how the wizards made wonderful fruits that grew in the air, and how the city people let their fields go dry and their farm animals die. But this was centuries before our people came. The descendants of the first Shukotlans had forgotten how to fight and make spells by the time that our ancestors arrived. So our soldiers killed all the city people except 100. These 100 prisoners were given to Tolkemec. For days he tortured and then killed them one by one. The chiefs of our ancestors in those days were two brothers, Tecuhtli and Xotalanc. They asked Olmec to be the third ruler of the city with them. He had opened the city gates after all. He married a woman from among our people, and he thought that secrets of the air-growing fruit and other things to the new rulers of Shukotl. The killing of Shukotlans broke the spell that kept the dragons in the forest, so they ran hungrily about the city walls at night, fighting and killing each other. It was then that Olmec stopped talking suddenly. Valerius thought that he had almost said something that he preferred to keep secret. Then he went on. For 5 years our ancestors lived here happily together, with no problems. Then Xotalanc took a man as his wife. Olmec looked for a moment at the silent woman beside him. Both the Cultli and old Tolkmec wanted her, too. Crazy with love, the Cultli stole her from her husband. Tolkmec helped the Cultli in order to hurt Xotalanc. Naturally, Xotalanc wanted his wife back. Both clans asked the council of our people what to do, and the councillors said the woman must decide. She chose to stay with the Cultli. Xotalanc tried to take her back, and so the two clans fought fiercely in the Great Hall. Many lives were lost. Soon the fighting became a war. Xotalanc, the Cultli, and Tolkmec divided the city. Xotalanc's men took the part near the eastern gate. The Cultli's men took the part near the western gate, and Tolkmec's family took the part near the southern gate. Each clan made its part into a castle to be safe from attack, while the two brothers' clans fought. Tolkmec took sides first with one brother, and then with the other. He was a devil of a man, and he knew many secrets about the catacombs that he would not told nobody. Then, 12 years ago, the people of the Cultli attacked Tolkmec's castle, killed his people, and took him prisoner. He was tortured and left to die, but he managed to escape and crawled down the catacombs. There, I'm sure, he died. We've never seen him since, but his bones were never found, and some of our people say his ghost walk the catacombs today. All of us, except of Tasela, were born into his fate. It began 50 years ago and will never end. Chapter 7. The Smell of Black Lotus. Prince Olmec's eye shone strangely as he continued his story. Our time here is nearly over. When the feud began, each clan had hundreds of people. Now, only 40 men and women of the Cultli live. We don't know the number of the Xotalancas, but they can have many more. For 15 years, we've had no children, and we've seen none among the Xotalancas. So we'll die soon. But before we do, we'll kill as many Xotalancas as we can. It was a sad story. Xotalanc himself had died long time ago, killed in a battle on the stairs. The Cultli too was dead. He was torn to pieces by the enemy who caught him. Olmec also spoke of wizards, of magic, and dark creatures that help in the war. The Xotalancas were lucky. The bones of the great wizard kings of Xuchotl lay in the eastern catacombs and their secrets were kept there too. As Valeria listened, she felt Tasela staring at her. We never leave the city, the prince went on. For 50 years nobody has left, except those. Again he stopped. Even without the dragons, he went on, we would like to be under open skies, with the sun shining on us. Well, with your permission, we'll take our chances with the dragons, said Conan. Tassela began to speak, but Olmec put on a hand to stop her. It's nearly night. If you travel across the desert now, the dragons will surely attack you and kill you. Oh, I get lost. We saw none there last night, replied Conan. Tassela smiled easily, sorry. You will not leave Shuchotl. I think they will, said Olmec. Look, Conan, Valeria. The gods sent you to help us win the war against our enemies. Stay and help us beat the Shotolakans. Then you can leave the city with all the treasure that you can carry. And can you help us destroy the dragons? Asked Valeria. With bows and poisoned arrows, 30 men could kill all the dragons in the forest in a day. Well, we don't use bows and arrows for close fighting here. But if you teach us how to shoot with them, we can, said Olmec. What do you think? Valeria asked to Conan. Well, we're poor travelers, aren't we? And killing Shotolankas is a good job as any. Then you agree, cried Olmec. Tecotl seemed pleased. Yes, answered Conan. But now can we go to rooms where we can sleep? We must be ready for battle tomorrow. Olmec smiled and waved a hand. Sorry. Tecotl and a woman took the two adventurers through a door to one side of the green steps. Looking back, Valeria could see the prince, his head on one hand, watching them. Sitting next to him, Tassela called her maid to her and whispered something in her ear. The corridor that they walked on was not wide, but it was very long. Soon the woman opened a door on the right. She stood to one side to let Valeria enter the room before her. And where am I sleeping? Asked Conan. Tecotl pointed to a room across the corridor, one door further along. Valeria smiled at Conan and shut her door in his face. After that, the barbarian followed Tecotl to his room. Oh, sorry. Is Tassela Olmec's wife? Conan asked when they arrived. Tecotl looked secretly about him before he answered. No, she was the wife of Shotalank, the woman Tecutli stole years ago when the feud began. What are you saying? Cried Conan. Tassela is beautiful and young. And are you telling me she was married 50 years ago? It's true, I promise you. She came to Shotl as a young woman, when Shotalank and Tecutli were young men. How is it possible? She's a witch. She knows the secret of eternal youth. And what secret is that? Asked Conan. Don't ask me, I can't tell you. It's too terrible for words. Then, putting a finger to his lips, Tecotl left the room. Valeria took off her sword belt and put it on the couch where she planned to sleep. All the doors in her bedroom had bolts, she noticed. But where do they go? She asked. Those two open on the rooms next door, the woman answered, pointing to the doors on the right and on the left. And that one? Asked Valeria, pointing to the metal face door opposite to one that they had come through. Behind it is a corridor that takes you to stairs going to the catacombs. But don't be afraid, nothing can hurt you there. Who's afraid? I'm just checking for danger, said Valeria. You have my permission to go now. When she was alone, Valeria bolted all the doors, took off her boots, and lay on the couch. She was soon asleep, but she woke up suddenly in the middle of a strange dream. In the darkness, she saw something shadowy shadowy bending over her. At first, she thought the figure was part of her dream. She lay on the couch, and a large black flower floated above her. Its smells filled her body with lazy tiredness. She floated on clouds of happy sleepiness. Then something touched her face, and she woke up fully. She saw not a flower, but a woman bending over her. Valeria sat up, and the woman turned to run away. But the pirate jumped from the couch and caught her arm. The woman tried to escape, but couldn't. Valeria pulled her back and turned her around until she could see his face. It was Tasela's maid, Yasala. What are you doing here? And what's in your hand? Cried Valeria. Yasala tried to hide the thing behind her, but Valeria pulled her arm forward. The thing that the maid held fell to the floor. It was a large black flower, as big as a woman's head, on a thick green branch with dark green leaves. A black lotus, cried Valeria. Its smell brings deep sleep. You were trying to drug me, but why? Yasala said nothing. Valeria pushed the maid to her knees and pulled her arm up behind her back. Tell me, or I'll tear your arm from your body, she shouted. Yasala only shook her head silently. Valeria remembered Tasela's eye on her at dinner, and her whispered conversation in Yasala's ear. Did Tasela send you? She asked. The maid said nothing. Why don't you speak? Who are you afraid of? Tasela? Olmec? Do I have to throw you to find out? A low cry escaped to the woman's lips. Please, no torture. I'll speak. But first I need a drink. My mouth is dry. She pointed to a gold cup of wine on the table by the couch. Valeria brought it to her. Yasala took the cup in her hand and suddenly threw the wine hard in the pirate's face. Valeria stepped back, helpless, her eyes half closed with pain. Yasala unbolted the metal door and rammed through it. Again, away down the corridor. Seconds later, Valeria followed, but Yasala was already gone. When the pirate reached the end of the corridor, she found an open door through which she saw dark stairs going underground. A terrible smell of dry bones floated up from below. This mustn't be the entrance to the catacombs, she thought. Just then, a woman cried reached from down in the blackness. Help! No! Please! Ah! The voice died away suddenly, but Valeria heard a sickening, ghostly laugh following it. She hurried back along the corridor, not stopping to close the stair door, and went into her room. She quickly pulled on her boots and pulled on her sword belt. She decided to ask Conan to run away with her from this city of devils. But just then, as she left her room, a long loud scream filled the air, together with the sound of swords and running feet. Chapter 8 20 Red Nails. Two Tecuhtli soldiers sat talking in the guardroom by the door of the Eagle. Usually watchful, they were now resting. An attack on the great metal door from outside was possible, but for many years their enemies had never tried it. The strangers are good allies, began one. Everyone says Olmec will move against the enemy tomorrow. The other went on, and if we destroy Xotalanc, what will happen to Shatmek? Well, excellent, replied Shatmek. We'll pull more red nails in the pillar, I suppose, and if we take any prisoners, we will tear their skin off and cut them into quarters. Excellent went on, but after we've killed them all, Won't it seem strange to have no enemy? All my life I've fought and hated the Shotalankas. But when the feud ends, what will we do? Shadmek shrugged his shoulders. He couldn't manage to think of a life without the feud. Then suddenly both men sat up. They had heard something outside the door. Listen carefully, said Excellent. I'll use the eye. Shadmek, sword in hand, put his ear on the door. Excellent looked into the mirror device. His eyes widened in surprise. A crowd of serious men stood outside. They were holding their swords in their teeth, and they had their fingers in their ears. One of them, with feathers on his head, held some pipes in his hands. He lifted those to his lips, and just as Excellent started to give a warning cry, he began to play them. The cry died in the guard's throat as the thin, strange music came through the thick metal of the door and reached his ears. Shadmek stood being bent forward against the door, unable to move. His face was wooden as he listened to those maddening pipes. Excellent, who was further away, noticed that how the unnatural music filled his own head with strange and crazy ideas. With a great effort, he broke the spell and shouted to warn the others in the castle of an enemy attack. Suddenly, the pipe blew harder and faster. Now the music was high and fierce like a knife in Excellent's ears. Shadmek screamed suddenly pain, and all the reason left his face like a light drying in the wind. He pulled back the bolts on the door, opened it, and ran out into the hall beyond. 12 swords caught him down, and the Shotalankas stepped quickly over his wounded body and ran into the guardroom with a long, loud cry. With an ache in his head from the shock of it all, Excellent jumped to meet them with a spear in his hand. The terrible magic of the pipes was less important now than the fact that enemy fighters were in Tecuhtli. He drove his spears into Shotolanka's side, and then a sword crashed down hard on his skull, and he knew no more. But just then, other wild-eyed Tecuhtli fighters ran out into the guardroom from the house behind it. It was the shouting of the men and the noise of swords against swords that made Conan jump from his couch. Fully awake, with his sword in his hand, in a second he had reached the door and thrown it open. He stared out in the corridor just as Tecuhtli hurried up to him, his eyes shining madly. "The Shotolankas!" he cried. "They're inside of our castle." Conan was running down the corridor when Valeria suddenly came out of her room. "What's happening?" she called. "Tecuhtli says that Shotalankas are inside Tecuhtli," he answered. With Tecuhtli shows behind them, they ran into the throne room and saw a terrible picture there. 20 Shotalanka men and women, their long black hair flying out behind them and white skulls on their chests, were locked in battle with the people of Tecuhtli. The men on both sides fought as madly as the men, and already the room as the hell beyond were full of dead bodies. Olmec was fighting for his life by the Black Pillar, and as the adventurers entered, Tasela ran in front of a room behind the pillar with a sword in her hand. Why had the Shotalankas decided to enter their enemy's castle? There were many reasons. They had lost more men than the Tecuhtli supposed. With the burning school now destroyed, and the Crowlet now badly wounded, things seemed hopeless for them. Added to that, they had heard the news, whispered by a dying man, that mysteriously foreigners had joined their enemies to fight against them. All of these things together made them decide to die bravely, killing their old enemies. After the first shock of the attack, the Kutli fought back fiercely. It was a bitter battle to the death, the final fight after 50 years of the feud, and everyone knew it. The end was no surprise. There were twice as many Tecuhtli as Xotalancas, and they were more confident of success too, because Conan and Valeria were fighting besides them. Valeria was fast on her feet and quick with her sword, which danced in her hand like wildfire. Conan was sure-footed and terribly strong, a real killing machine. None of the Xotalancas stood a chance against him. It was not long before the last of them fell dying to the ground. Those Tecuhtli still standing looked around in surprise at the dead bodies of friends and enemy lying on the floor. "There's a wound on your leg," Conan said to Valeria. She looked down for the first time, noticing the pain some dying man on the floor behind her had driven his knife into the back of her leg with a last effort. Olmec walked over to them, his eyes shining fiercely. "We've won!" he cried. "The feud is finished. The dogs of Xotalanc lie dead." It's good to look at their lifeless faces. 20 dead dogs. 20 red nails for the black pillar. "But are you sure that this is all of them?" asked Conan. "Yes. A chief doesn't divide his army in an attack like this. I promise you, we'll keep them all." There were fewer of them than I dreamed, but how could they enter our castle? Just then, Tasela came towards them, with her sword in one hand. In the other she held the pipes that she had taken from the feathered chief of Xotalancas. "Here are the pipes of madness," she explained. "One of our fighters told me that Xotmec opened the doors to our enemies after they played these. This fighter arrived from the inner hall just in time to see all this happen, and to hear the last strange notes of some music that turned his blood into ice. In the old days, Tokmek spoke of those pipes. Two Xuchotlans had said they were hidden in the catacombs with the bones of the old wizard who once played them. In some way, the men of Xotalanc found them and learned their secret. Why don't we check if any fighters in Xotalanc are still alive?" asked Conan. "I'll go if somebody shows me the way." "Who will take Conan to Xotalanc?" asked Olmec. Tecuhtli stepped forward. He had a bad cut down one side of his body. "I'll go," he said. "No, you won't," said Conan. "And you're not going either, Valeria. Not with your leg like that." "I'll go," said a young fighter, cleaning a small cut on one arm. "Very well, Janath. Go with the barbarian. You too, Topal." Olmec pointed to an old man who had only small cuts on him. "But first, let's carry those people who are hurt to the couches. Our nurses can take better care of them there." They did this quickly, as they bent to pick up a woman that the Xotalancas had knocked on the head with a big fighting stick. Olmec's bird brushed against Topal's ear. Conan thought that the prince whispered something to the fighter, but he couldn't be sure. A few moments later, he was walking with Janath and Topal down the hall to the metal entrance door. Chapter 9. Glass-fronted shelves. Carefully, the two Tecuhtli walked out beyond the metal door, and Conan followed. They went through many rooms, but they saw no one, and heard nothing. After they crossed the great hall that divided the city in two from north to south, they became more watchful. But all the rooms that they passed were empty. At last, They reached a large metal door like the door of the eagle in Tecuhtli. They pushed it open. For 50 years, no Tecuhtli had passed along here except prisoners on their way to torture and death. To Yanath and Topol, standing at that door was like waiting to step into hell. They were afraid to go further. Conan pushed past them and walked confidently into Shotalang. The others looked wildly about them as they followed, but nothing broke the silence except their own steps. After the guard room, there was a corridor, almost the same as the one that went the Olmec's throne room. Conan looked around and listened. He heard no noise, and the place felt empty. He was confident that there were no Shotalankas alive there. "Come on," he said, and began to going down the corridor. But only Yanath followed him, he realized. Conan turned back to see Topal standing some way behind him. Topal had one arm out, like someone keeping danger away, and there was a frightened expression on his face. He was staring at something that was partly hidden by one of the couches. "What is it?" cried Conan. And then he saw. An awful head protruded. From behind the couch, it was large and dragonish, and two long white teeth protruded from its mouth. But the thing was unnaturally still, and its eyes were glassy. Conan looked behind the couch and found a great serpent lying dead there. He had never seen anything like it. The smell of the catacombs was on it, and its color changed when he looked at it from different sides. A great wound in its neck showed the reasons for its death. "It's the crawler," whispered Yanath fearfully. "It's the creature that I fought on the stairs," added Conan. "After it followed us to the door of the eagle, it crawled back here to die. But how could the Shotalankas control it?" The Kultri shrugged their shoulders. "They brought it from the catacombs. They discovered secrets that were unknown to us. Well, it's dead now," said Conan, "and my guess is there was only one crawler. They didn't bring another when they attacked the door of the eagle, did they? Come on." Yanath and Topo followed him to the end of the corridor where he opened a door that was faced with silver. "If we don't find anyone on this floor, we'll go lower. We'll check Shotalang from the roof to the catacombs. By all the gods, what's this?" They were now in the throne room. It had the same couches, green stone steps, and ivory throne as Olmec's great hall in Tecuhtli. Except here there was no black pillar with red nails. The blood feud was remembered in Shotalanka in a different way. The wall behind the throne, there were rows of glass-covered shelves, and on these shelves there were hundreds of carefully arranged human heads. They seemed almost alive as they stared out at the shocked visitors with unfeeling eyes, just as they had stared for countless months and years. Topol whispered something angrily to himself, but Yanath stood silent, a mad light growing in his eyes. Conan watched the young man very carefully. Just then, Yanath pointed to the lifeless heads with a shaking finger. That's my brother Herd," he said, "and my uncle, and there beyond them is my sister's son." Suddenly he began to cry, dry-eyed, with deep sobs that shook his body from head to foot. He did not take his eyes from the heads. His sobs grew louder and highly until he was laughing uncontrollably. Then the sound changed again and became hellish screams. Yanath had gone crazy. Conan put a hand on the young fighter's shoulder. Janat turned quickly at his and screamed loudly, attacking the barbarian with his sword. Conan fought back and Topal tried to catch Janat's arm, but the mad Tecuhtli pulled away and dropped his sword hard into Topal's body. Topal fell to the floor with a cry, and Janat turned for a moment in crazy circles. Then he ran to the glass-fronted shelves and began to hit them with his sword while shouting the most terrible things. Conan jumped on him from behind, trying to catch him by surprise. But Janat turned and went for him, screaming like a devil. The young fighter was hopelessly mad. Conan realized and he stepped to one side as Janat ran past. Then he brought his sword down heavily on Janat's shoulder. The madman fell lifeless to the floor near Topal. Conan went to Topal. He was losing blood fast from the deep wound in his side, and the barbarian could do nothing to save him. "You're dying, Topal," said Conan. "Do you want to send any word back to your people?" "Bend closer," whispered Topal. Conan did that. A second later, he caught the man's wrist as Topal tried to drive a knife into the barbarian's chest. "By the gods!" cried Conan. "Are you mad too?" "Olmec ordered it," whispered the dying man. "I don't know why. As we took the wounded people to their couches, he asked me to quietly to kill you before we return to the Tecuhtli." And with the name of his clan on his lips, Topal died. Conan looked at him wonderingly. Was Olmec mad too? Were all the Tecuhtli mad? Shrugging away these questions, he walked out of Xotalanc and left Janat and Topal lying dead before the staring, lifeless eyes on their clan's brothers. Conan recognized the way back easily and needed no help. With his sword in his hand, he was watchful on the journey back to Tecuhtli, and he had been on the journey out to Xotalanc. But now he feared his past allies, not the ghosts of first Xotalancas. The barbarians had already crossed the Great Hall and entered a corridor beyond it, when he heard something in front of him. It sounded like someone pulling something over the floor, and it stopped and started often. A low, choking voice spoke from time to time in between the other noises. Just then, Conan saw a man crawling across the floor toward him. It was Tecuhtli, and his eyes were glassy. He was bleeding badly from his chest. His hand covering the wound was bloody, and with the other hand he was pulling himself along. "Conan!" Tecuhtli sobbed when he saw the barbarian standing in front of him. "Olmec's taken Valeria, so that's why he wanted me dead?" Conan thought. He dropped to his knees by the wounded man. "I tried to stop him," Tecuhtli said, "but he attacked me. He thought he would kill me, but I crawled away. Be careful, Conan. He'll try to ambush you. Kill him, then leave with Valeria." Olmec and Tassella lied about the dragons. They killed each other years ago, all except the strongest. For 12 years there's been only one dragon. If it's dead now, then there are none. It was the princess dragon god. Olmec gave it human sacrifices, the old and the sick. They were tied and thrown from the city wall. "Go quickly, he's taken to the hall of..." Just then, his head dropped to one side, and he died. Conan ran off toward the Tecuhtli, thinking fast. How many of the clan were left? 17, counting Olmec. Surely he could beat them. Then he remembered the Tecutl's word about an ambush. "He's right," he said aloud. "Olmec's planned for Topol to murder me, but he'll have another plan ready, just to make sure. The prince will think I'll return to the same way that I left, so I'll enter Tecutli from a lower floor," he thought. At the next stairs, he went down to the third floor and traveled west. After a while, he knew he must be near Tecutli. Then he heard a noise. Somebody was trying to cry out through a gag. Conan followed the sound, which was repeated many times. At last, he stood by the door from which the sound came. He opened it and looked inside, and he was shocked at what he saw. Chapter 10. He comes from the darkness. "Why did you bring me to this room?" asked Valeria. She sat on a couch with her sword beside her, and her leg in front of her. A Tecutli woman was bandaging it. "They've taken the wounded fighters to different rooms," said the woman, finishing her work. Then they'll take the dead bodies to the catacombs to stop their ghosts walking at night." "Ghosts?" asked Valeria. "Yes, I saw the ghost of Tolkmek once in the catacombs," the woman added. It took the shape of an old man with long white hair and a bird. It was Tolkmek, for sure. I saw him living when I was a child," she went on fearfully. "Olmec logs, but Tolkmek's ghost lives. I know. They say the rats eat the meat from the bones of the newly dead, but I don't think it's rat. I think..." She looked up as a shadow fell across her. Valeria looked up also to find Olmec staring down. The woman got up silently and left the room in a hurry. "The bandage doesn't look right," said the prince, bending over Valeria. "Let's see." A moment later, he had thrown her sword across the room and was trying to take her in his arms. Valeria pulled out a knife, but Olmec took her wrist in his hand, crushing it until the knife fell to the floor. After Valeria beat his wrist, he hit her on the side of the head. She fell back on the couch, unable to see straight. Moments later, he was carrying her hurriedly from the room. She lay still for a while. Conan was in Shotalang, and she was sure that the Tecuhltli never questioned the wishes of their prince, so she didn't call for help. But Olmec had his head on one side. She decided like a thief, listening for someone following him. They were also going away from the throne room, she realized. So then she screamed. Suddenly, Tecutl arrived. "Olmec!" he shouted. The prince turned angrily. He moved Valeria under his left arm, holding her around the middle. She could not escape. "Valeria is Conan's friend," Tecutl cried. "They fought against the Shotalankas. You mustn't..." Without a word, Olmec closed his free hand into a ball and sent it hard into the wounded fighter's face. Tecutl fell to the floor. Then the prince, still with his prisoner under his arms, pulled Tecutl's sword from his belt and drove it to Tecutl's chest, throwing the sword to one side. Olmec hurried off with Valeria. Tecutl rolled out onto his from and began crawling eastward. Olmec carried Valeria downstairs and along several corridors to a large hall with a metal door at one end. "That door goes to the city outside Tecutli," he said. We don't need guards here now because Chotalang is finished. Conan will cut your throat for this, cried Valeria. Forget Conan, he answered. I'm Prince of Shuchotl now too. We will have no more fighting here. Let's drink to that. He sat down on the edge of a stone table and held her in one arm. With his free hand, he reached across for an open bottle of wine that was standing on the table. He lifted it to Valeria's lips. Drink, he ordered her. Valeria turned her head. Wine fell down her shirt. She doesn't like your wine, said a woman's voice coldly. Olmec turned to see Tassela at the door behind them. She had a small gold bottle in her hand. Luckily, I have more of my wine. I brought it here years ago. Do you understand, Olmec? Tassela came closer. You think only of yourself, Olmec, she said. But Valeria is mine. You did wrong. Olmec answered angrily. Witch, she devil. Why didn't Tecutli murder you 50 years ago? Go before I kill you. Oh, Olmec, the princess went on calmly. You can't fight me. You're a slave of the Black Lotus, and I can't control you. She pushed him back to sit on the table. Then she put the gold bottle to his lips. Drink, she ordered him. The prince drank. Suddenly, he fell to the floor, unable to speak or move. Valeria tried to attack Tassela, but the princess caught the pirate's wrist in one unnaturally strong hand and tied her to a chair. Then she opened the metal door. Through here there's a torture room that we used once. There's a big machine left there which will be very suitable. Fear showed in Olmec's eyes. Yes, you can hear me, said Tassela. And soon the drug wine will stop working and you'll feel again. But it will be too late. She pulled the prince effortlessly across the floor and through the door. Soon after that, Valeria heard a machine working on a man's cries of pain. Tassela returned alone. She closed the door behind her and untied Valeria. I've chosen you be something very special, she said. I'm all inside, so I need your youth to keep me young and beauty. And now you're going to give it to me. Tassela pulled the pair to her feet. Valeria stared into the witch's eyes, and knew she must obey. In the room before Conan, Olmec, Prince of Tecutli, was tied to a metal bed. He lay face up with his head on a bed of nails. A ring of leather was fastened around his head, and from this a long chain went up to a metal box on the ceiling above his chest. From this box another chain came down with a heavy metal ball at the end. While the prince lay still, the ball stayed where it was. But when the nails became too painful and he lifted his head, the metal ball dropped a little. When he could no longer keep his head up, it fell back and everything began again. That ball's going to crush his chest, Conan cried. Olmec lifted his head and looked over at the barbarian. The gag in his mouth stopped him speaking, but his dark eyes asked for help. Conan walked over to him. Where's Valeria? Asked the barbarian, taking the gag from the prince's mouth. Once I'm out of this machine, I'll tell you, said Olmec. Maybe I'll find her myself, said Conan, standing up. Wait, don't leave. Princess Tassela has her. Look, Tassela is a witch, and I'm her slave. I was just obeying orders. Why does she want Valeria? Asked Conan. She wants Valeria's youth to stay young. She'll sacrifice her today. We must hurry. We? Said Conan. Yes, I can help you get into the castle. I know all the doors in and out of it. Listen, Tasela thinks I'm helpless, and you're dead. Let's arrive together and surprise her. Minutes later, Olmec was a free man. At once, he took Conan to a secret entrance in Tecuhltli. Only Tasela and I know of this, he explained. Tecuhltli himself built it 50 years ago, but one day, when he was returning from a fight with the Xotalancas, the door didn't open. Tasela, who no longer loved him, had discovered his secret and bolted it against him. So his enemies came and killed him. Olmec pushed a golden button behind a pillar. A door opened in the wall. The prince and the barbarian began to climb the stairs going up inside, and the door closed behind them. These stairs take us up to the roof, explained Olmec on the way. From there, more stairs go down to the throne room. When they reach the roof, they walk along a short corridor to the top of the other stairs. Suddenly, they heard a woman scream from below. Conan recognized Valeria's voice. He pushed past Olmec and started hurrying down the stairs. Just then, Olmec lifted his closed hand to hit the barbarian on the neck of the head. Conan turned just in time, and his fingers around the prince's throat. The two of them fell, fighting all the way down the stairs. They landed with a crash at the bottom, rolling across the floor and banging against the throne room door. This broke into pieces as they shot through it. Conan jumped up quickly, ready for more, but Olmec's neck was broken, and he lay lifeless on the floor. Then Conan turned and saw the others. Tasela sat on the throne. Valeria lay on a black stone altar before the green steps. A young man held her wrists, and a young woman held her ankles. 13 more men and women of Tecuhltli were on their knees before the altar, and 7 black candles burning gold pots around it. These candles set clouds of sweet-smelling green smoke, floating up to the ceiling. Tasela stood. She walked to the altar and lifted a golden knife high in the air. "Stop!" cried Conan, running toward her. But just then a metal trap in the floor closed around his leg. Its silver teeth beat into his skin. He was caught. Tasela laughed. "A stupid barbarian," she cried. "All the doors in the room have traps before them. Now, watch while your friend gives me the greatest present of all, eternal life." Just then, a strange and terrible figure entered the room from a door by the green steps. He had long white hair, a white beard, and grey skin. "Tolkmek?" cried Tasela, putting the gold knife in her belt. "Not a story. Then not a ghost. You live. But why did you wait 12 years to return from the catacombs?" The old man laughed crazily and jumped over the trap before him in the floor. He shook something madly in his hand. It was a long green stick with a red ball at the top. "Ah, I see," said Tasela. "You were searching for something down in the catacombs, and now you've found it." Tolkmek smiled toothlessly and pointed the stick straight at Tasela. Red fire shot from the ball at the end of it toward her. She jumped to one side, and the fire went past her. It hit the woman holding Valeria's ankle, and she turned to ash. The other 14 Tecuhltli in the room ran around screaming as the old wizard shot them one by one with the fire stick and turned them to ash. Soon, only Conan, Valeria, and Tassella were left. Valeria had run to Conan's side as soon as she could. Now, the princess joined them, putting a heavy silver knife in Conan's hand. "Help me!" she cried. "My magic spells are useless against Togsmek. Kill him and you can go free." She stepped on a gold button. The trap opened on its teeth when its teeth went back down into the red stone floor. "Be careful," cried Tassella. "If you're between the altar or a metal door and the fire stick, Togmek can burn you to ash. Good luck." After that, the barbarian and the wizard danced around the room silently. Conan stayed away from the altar and the metal doors, and Togmek tried to trick him into making a mistake. But Conan cleverly moved closer all the time, and Togmek never realized. Suddenly, Valeria screamed for a second. For a second, Conan stood between a metal door and the fire stick. Togmek pointed the stick and shot while Conan turned, jumped, and threw the silver knife. It landed squarely in the wizard's chest, and the wizard fell down dead. While the fire stick rolled across the floor, Tassella ran for it, but Valeria pulled the golden knife from Tassella's belt, drove it keep into the witch's heart, and killed her. "Good work," laughed Conan. "You too," smiled Valeria. "And now, let's leave Shushatul." "Yeah, let's do that, and without any of its hellish treasure." "Where shall we go next?" he asked. "It's a long way to the coast," said Valeria. "Don't worry, we'll be there in no time." And arm in arm, the two of them left the dead city. End. Well, hope you enjoyed these last 6 chapters. I really enjoyed reading for first time this book. I had no idea of what was it about, but I found it very interesting. I think that I got engaged a lot in the last chapter, like in the last how Olmec results to be an slave of his wife, and I think it's an end, finish that I didn't expect it, but I really enjoyed this book. So thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.